The first time I realized my life wasn't going to be ordinary, I was 15, hiding in my bedroom with a borrowed lipstick and a pair of my sister's earrings. I had always felt a strange fascination with clothes and makeup, drawn to their soft textures, sparkling colors, and the way they could transform someone instantly. It wasn't rebellion or curiosity alone. It was a part of me that I didn't know how to express in the daylight of my everyday life. Now, at 22, Liam, lived a carefully compartmentalized life. By day, I worked at a tech startup, where my colleagues knew me as competent, quiet, and entirely conventional. By night, in the privacy of my apartment, I became Liana. I'd spent hours perfecting the transformation, the soft contour of my cheeks, the shimmer of eyeshadow, the delicate pink of my lips, and the elegant sway of skirts and heels that made me feel whole. It wasn't always easy. I'd learned to navigate the fine line between fear and exhilaration, excitement and shame. Every step into heels was a thrill, every brushstroke of makeup a reminder that this secret part of me existed, and that one misstep could shatter everything. The apartment today was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of afternoon sunlight streaming through the blinds. My desk was cluttered with sketches and notes, remnants of my day job, yet my mind kept wandering. My phone buzzed repeatedly, a text from Emma flashing on the screen. She was my girlfriend, sweet and understanding, or at least I hoped she was. Our relationship was complex. She knew snippets about my fascination with femininity, but not the full truth. And even though she had always teased me gently, I never let her see the full transformation. "Hey, Liam," her text read. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Dinner at my place?" I smiled nervously, typing a quick reply. "Sure, can't wait." A pang of worry hit me. Tonight's visit would be tricky. I had promised myself I wouldn't reveal anything tonight, not yet. But my thoughts drifted elsewhere, to Uncle Victor. Uncle Victor was a figure I'd always admired from a distance. Brilliant, eccentric, and a scientist whose curiosity often veered into morally gray areas, he had a penchant for experiments that others would shy away from. Visiting him had always been a mix of fascination and dread. He treated the world like a puzzle, and people, I feared, like test subjects. I'd received his invitation earlier that week, insisting I come to his home for what he called a small personal experiment. I should have been wary, but curiosity got the better of me. The house was in a quiet suburb, quaint and unassuming from the outside, but inside, it was a labyrinth of equipment, notes, and odd contraptions that hummed and blinked incessantly. Uncle Victor greeted me with his usual mix of charm and mischief, his sharp eyes scanning my every movement. Liam, or should I say, Liana, perhaps, he said, a glint of curiosity in his eyes. I froze, unsure if he had guessed, or if it was his playful way of welcoming me. He didn't wait for an answer. "Come, I've been working on something you might find enlightening." His lab smelled of antiseptic and metal, a sharp contrast to the softness I was used to in my own apartment. On the counter lay vials of shimmering liquid, instruments with blinking lights, and a small mirror that reflected my own anxious expression. I hesitated. Something in his tone suggested that this experiment was not just theoretical. My heart raced as I realized I was at a crossroads. I could leave, walk out, and preserve my carefully controlled life. Or I could step closer and see what Victor had in store, a temptation that ignited both fear and excitement in equal measure. I don't know if I started, but Victor waved a hand dismissively. "Nonsense. You're curious, aren't you? Always have been. And today, you'll see what it feels like to explore another side of yourself fully." My stomach churned. There was a thrill in his words, a promise of the transformation I'd always dreamed of, but also a sharp edge of danger. I knew from experience that Uncle Victor's small experiments rarely stayed small. "Just promise me nothing irreversible," I said cautiously, my eyes scanning the devices around us. Victor laughed, a low, mischievous sound. "Oh, my dear Liam, we'll see. It's all reversible mostly." He gestured toward a chair at the center of the lab. I stepped forward, nerves tightening, heels clicking lightly against the tile. Each step seemed louder than it should have been, echoing in the silent room. Victor's eyes gleamed with anticipation, and my mind raced with possibilities, both thrilling and terrifying. As I sat, he began explaining the procedure, a carefully orchestrated combination of chemical agents, hormonal enhancers, and sensory manipulation designed to heighten feminine characteristics and shift my physicality toward a softer, more delicate form. My pulse quickened as he spoke. I had toyed with the idea of temporary transformations before, makeup, padding, clothing, but this was different. This was real, physical, and immediate. I glanced at the mirror, seeing Liam's reflection, a mix of apprehension, curiosity, and excitement. And I imagined Liana emerging on the other side of the experiment. Soft features, gentle curves, and the sense of vulnerability I had always secretly craved. Victor's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. "Ready?" I nodded, though my heart thundered in my chest. The thrill of possibility collided with the terror of uncertainty. I was about to cross a line I had never dared approach before. And there was no turning back once this began. The first sensation was subtle, a tingling warmth that crept along my skin, starting at my hands and arms. It wasn't painful, but it was unmistakable, like a gentle wave washing over me, and it carried with it a curious mix of fear and excitement. I shifted nervously in the chair, my heart racing, as Uncle Victor watched intently, his fingers dancing over the instruments with precision. "You'll feel it more strongly soon," he said calmly. "Just relax and let the process work." I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breathing. Each pulse of warmth seemed to stretch beyond my skin, deep into my bones, altering the very shape of my body. I looked down and blinked. My arms already appeared slimmer, softer. The subtle transformation sent a thrill through me I hadn't anticipated. Part of me wanted to jump up and shout, to revel in the changes. But another part, the part that had learned caution, told me to stay still, to hide from the full impact until I understood what was happening. Victor leaned closer, eyes gleaming. "Your facial features will follow next. Notice the subtle shifts, see how your cheekbones soften, your jawline narrows. Pay attention to the reflection, it's important." I hesitated before lifting my eyes to the mirror. Liam's face stared back at me, but gradually, those familiar lines began to blur. Cheeks plumped slightly, lips became softer, eyes seemed wider and more expressive. I gasped, a sound that made the hair on my arms stand on end. The sensation of seeing my own face change, so familiar yet suddenly delicate, was intoxicating. "Feel that?" Victor asked, voice low and knowing. "That's the bridge between Liam and Liana. The realignment. Don't fight it." I shook my head, overwhelmed. Part of me was terrified. What if this didn't stop at temporary changes? What if it revealed parts of myself I hadn't prepared to show anyone? Yet, intertwined with the fear was an undeniable thrill. The dress I had brought in anticipation of this experiment now felt more real, more necessary. I imagined slipping into it, letting the fabric mold with my new form, and my pulse quickened. Victor handed me a soft, pastel dress. "You should wear this soon. It will help your mind align with your body. Think of it as integration." I hesitated. The skirt was delicate, the material soft against my fingertips. Sliding into it felt almost sacramental, a rite of passage. As I pulled it over my head, the fabric brushing my now more sensitive skin, a shiver ran down my spine. Liana was emerging, and with every fiber of my being, I felt both exhilarated and exposed. Victor adjusted the straps carefully, guiding me through small movements to test my balance. "Heels will come later," he said with a smile. "But you'll need to learn to move differently. A softer step, a gentler sway. It's not just about appearance, it's about presence." I stepped forward cautiously, skirt swishing around my legs. Each movement was foreign yet thrilling. The reflection in the mirror no longer felt like Liam, it was Liana, fragile yet radiant, tentative yet confident. My heartbeat quickened as I realized that this wasn't just an experiment of the body, it was a test of identity, a challenge of courage. Victor handed me a small bag with subtle makeup, blush, eyeshadow, a soft lip color. Your face needs alignment too. You're nearly ready to present yourself fully. I took the brush hesitantly, the tactile sensation sending a spark of nervous energy through me. Every stroke seemed to awaken a deeper connection with Liana. Blush swept across my cheeks, highlighting the softened contours. Eyeshadow deepened the gaze, making me look almost fragile, almost otherworldly. Lips tingled as I applied the soft pink hue, completing the transformation. I breathed deeply and stepped back to examine myself in the mirror. Liana stared back, wide-eyed, a fragile new persona poised delicately between fear and delight. My fingers trembled slightly as I adjusted the dress, now fully aware of the reflection. A mix of excitement and vulnerability swirled inside me. I was exposed, yet I felt more real than I had in years. Victor's eyes gleamed. Excellent. Now we'll test the subtlety, movement, posture, and confidence. These are critical. The more comfortable you appear, the more convincing the transformation will be. I followed his instructions, learning to walk with a gentle sway, to tilt my head slightly, to soften gestures that once felt masculine. The room seemed to shrink around me, every detail amplified, the hum of machines, the soft folds of the dress, the reflection of my own emerging form. I realized how fragile yet potent this persona could be. A sudden knock at the lab door made me jump. My pulse spiked. "Who is it?" Victor called, eyes narrowing. "Delivery," a voice responded faintly. Victor waved me off. "Ignore it. Concentrate. Focus on Liana." I nodded, forcing my attention back to the mirror. The reflection had become addictive. I could lose myself in Liana for hours if allowed. But Victor's eyes reminded me that this was controlled, that each step carried stakes I hadn't fully grasped. He handed me a pair of heels. "Now, the final touch. They will complete the integration body and mind. Take your time." I hesitated, heart pounding. Stepping into heels always made me acutely aware of my vulnerability. Each click against the floor amplified my anxiety, yet also my confidence. I learned to sway, to balance, to walk as Liana would. With each step, the persona solidified. I was no longer merely Liam wearing clothes. I was Liana moving, breathing, existing. Minutes passed, and the transformation deepened. My reflection stared back with quiet intensity. Liana was fully realized, delicate yet powerful, exposed yet commanding in her own fragile way. Every sensation, the soft fabric, the brush of makeup, the tilt of my hips, felt new, thrilling, and terrifying all at once. Victor observed silently, a satisfied gleam in his eyes. "You're ready for the next stage," he said softly. "Tonight, you'll meet the world as Liana, at least for a little while. But remember, curiosity always comes with risk." I nodded, aware that this experiment had only begun. My heart pounded with anticipation, my mind racing with possibilities and fears. Liana was alive, but so was the uncertainty of exposure, of discovery, of navigating this fragile new identity outside the safety of the lab. And as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the equipment-strewn room, I realized the challenge was only just beginning. Liana would have to step into the outside world, face friends, family, and perhaps even Emma, all while maintaining the delicate balance between fear and exhilaration, secrecy and revelation. The door to the lab clicked shut behind us, and the apartment grew quiet. I took a deep breath, feeling the full weight and thrill of my new identity. Liana was ready, or at least as ready as one could be when stepping into a life that was not yet fully their own. The first step out of Uncle Victor's lab was disorienting. The hallway of his house stretched longer than usual, shadows crawling along the walls. Liana's heels clicked softly against the floor, each step a reminder of the delicate, fragile persona I now embodied. The transformation wasn't just physical, it had altered how I moved, how I felt, and even how I perceived the world. "Relax," Victor murmured behind me. "Confidence sells it. Walk like you belong in your own skin." I nodded, though every nerve in my body screamed caution. My reflection in the hallway mirror was startling. Soft cheekbones, wide eyes, gentle curves, and the pastel dress hugging my new form. A thrill and a pang of fear coursed through me. What if someone saw me like this? Victor led me to the living room. He had arranged a social test, an artificial setting with mannequins, cameras, and subtle distractions meant to push my comfort zone. Each mannequin was dressed in a different style, some casual, some elegant, and one oddly reminiscent of my sister. The purpose was clear. I had to interact, move naturally, and maintain composure under observation. My first interaction was a mannequin in a delicate sundress. I approached slowly, practicing polite gestures, soft movements, and gentle speech. My reflection in the mirrored wall beside me caught every nuance. Liana's tentative grace, the way the dress swayed with each step, the subtle tilt of my head. Victor watched silently, eyes gleaming with satisfaction. But the real test arrived unexpectedly. The front door opened, and a human presence filled the house. My heart stuttered. A neighbor? Perhaps a friend? Or worse, Emma? It was Emma. She had come to check on me, unaware of the experiment, unaware that the Liam she knew had transformed completely into Liana. She paused in the doorway, her eyes widening at the sight. Liam? Her voice trembled, curiosity and disbelief blending. I froze, unsure how to respond. Liana wanted to step forward, to embrace this revelation, yet fear clamped down on every nerve. My hands shook slightly as I adjusted the hem of the pastel dress. Victor's voice was calm but firm. Stay in character. Show confidence. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, heels clicking softly. Hi, Emma, I said, my voice soft, melodic, unfamiliar to both of us. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe, lingering on the soft contours, the delicate makeup, the way my hair framed my face. What happened to you? I tried to smile, though it felt fragile. I'm exploring something new. I wanted to see how it feels to be Liana. Emma's gaze softened slightly, but a shadow of concern crossed her face. This is a lot. Liam or Liana. The words hung between us, heavy with tension. I realized that Liana wasn't just a persona, she was a truth that demanded recognition. And yet, there was danger in exposure, fear of judgment, and the thrill of revealing myself fully. Victor cleared his throat. Emma, just observe for now. This is part of the experiment. Emma's hesitation was palpable. She stepped closer, curiosity warring with uncertainty. You really did this? Overnight. Yes, I whispered, cheeks flushing. It's an experiment, but it feels real. The next moments were a blur of interaction. Emma circled, eyes sharp, noticing every detail. The way my hips swayed, the delicate tilt of my fingers, the softness of my cheeks. I could feel her evaluation pressing down like a weight. My pulse raced with fear and exhilaration. Then came the first close call. Victor had set up cameras to simulate a social environment, and one of them blinked a red light. Emma noticed instantly. What's that? She asked, suspicion creeping in. I panicked internally. It's part of the lighting, I stammered, hoping my explanation sounded natural. The lie felt fragile, each word teetering on the brink of exposure. Victor's presence behind me was reassuring yet tense. Keep moving. Ignore the distractions. As the tension mounted, another surprise arrived. Uncle Victor activated a subtle hormonal adjustment, heightening Liana's femininity even further. My reflection shifted again, cheeks pinker, lips fuller, hair softer. The change was mesmerizing and terrifying at once. Emma gasped softly. You look different, almost like a girl, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, I admitted, feeling a shiver run down my spine. I am different. The suspense escalated further when Victor signaled a mannequin to interact more aggressively. Its arm brushed against mine unexpectedly, forcing Liana to react naturally. My heels wobbled slightly, and I felt a flicker of fear that I might topple entirely. Emma's eyes widened, and she instinctively reached out. You're okay, she whispered. I nodded, though my mind screamed with adrenaline. The tactile sensations, the dress, the heels, the subtle brush of the mannequin, made Liana's persona feel dangerously real. I realized that every step, every gesture, was a performance, yet it also felt like truth. Just as I began to regain composure, the experiment escalated. Victor's machine emitted a soft hum, and I felt a tingling sensation intensify, altering my posture, softening my voice further, enhancing my presence. Liana wasn't just emerging, she was asserting herself. Emma's reaction was subtle but telling. She stepped back slightly, her hand to her mouth, eyes wide. I don't know what to say, she admitted. The tension peaked when another unexpected knock echoed through the house. This time, a neighbor, Mr. Fletcher, holding a package. My pulse spiked. He had no idea what he was walking into, and the risk of exposure was now at its peak. Victor whispered, "Stay calm. Observe and adapt." I moved toward the hallway, practicing soft steps, careful gestures, and gentle speech. Liana's persona guided me, her grace, her subtle confidence, but the stakes were higher than ever. Each second felt like an eternity, the suspense unbearable, the fear of discovery sharp as a knife. The door opened, and Mr. Fletcher's eyes immediately fell on me. He froze, mid-step, confusion and surprise etched across his face. I felt my heart leap into my throat. Liana's persona stiffened, vulnerable yet poised, fragile yet commanding. Victor's voice was low but firm. Smile. Be natural. Own the moment. I forced a gentle smile, feeling every fiber of my body tremble under the pressure. The suspense reached its zenith as Mr. Fletcher's gaze flicked from my face to my dress, to my heels, then back again. His expression shifted slowly, a mix of curiosity and incredulity. Emma's hand squeezed mine gently, a subtle reminder that I wasn't alone. Liana's fingers trembled slightly, but the reflection in the hallway mirror revealed a strength I hadn't realized I possessed. The next seconds stretched unbearably. Every sound, the creak of the floor, the hum of the machines, the shuffle of shoes, amplified the suspense. Liana's existence, her identity, her delicate balance between exposure and concealment, all hung by a thread. And then, just as I began to think I might survive this trial, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from an unknown number flashed. "I know what's happening. Be careful tonight." My breath caught. Liana froze mid-step, the thrill of the transformation colliding violently with the fear of discovery. Emma's eyes met mine, wide with concern. Victor's expression hardened slightly, his usual mischievous gleam replaced by seriousness. The suspense had reached its peak. Liana was fully revealed, but the threat of exposure, judgment, and unforeseen consequences loomed dangerously close. One misstep, one glance, one word could unravel everything, her identity, her secret, her delicate existence. And in that suspended moment, frozen between exhilaration and terror, I realized that the night was far from over. Liana had emerged, beautiful, vulnerable, and alive, but the world outside Uncle Victor's lab was waiting, unpredictable and merciless. My hands shook as I held the phone, the anonymous message burning in my mind. "I know what's happening. Be careful tonight." Liana froze in the hallway, heels clicking softly on the floor, the pastel dress swaying delicately around her legs. My pulse raced so loudly, I thought Emma might hear it. Emma's eyes widened, her lips parted in surprise and concern. Who sent that?" she asked, her voice trembling. I don't know," I stammered, fingers tightening around the phone. Liana's soft, melodic voice trembled slightly, a reflection of the panic I felt beneath the surface. Every nerve in my body screamed caution. Every instinct told me that this experiment had just shifted from controlled curiosity to a dangerous exposure of my most vulnerable self. Uncle Victor's eyes narrowed. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Stay calm. Remember everything we practiced. Confidence, grace, poise. Liana must not falter." I nodded, though the reassurance barely touched the storm inside me. I could feel Liana's fragile identity vibrating with tension. The reflection in the hallway mirror stared back, wide-eyed and delicate, yet poised. She was beautiful, feminine, and completely vulnerable. The front door creaked again, this time slower, deliberate. Emma instinctively moved toward me, her hand brushing mine, a subtle anchor. My heart hammered. I knew someone was approaching, someone who could shatter everything in a single moment. A shadow appeared at the edge of the doorframe. My breath caught. The silhouette was unfamiliar, yet confident. I recognized the gait, tall, deliberate, and oddly composed. Every muscle in my body tensed. Liana's fingers trembled. "Liam," a voice called softly, curious and probing. I froze. The voice was neutral, unreadable. My mind raced. How much could they see? How much did they already know? The suspense was unbearable. Liana's posture stiffened, every movement magnified by the adrenaline surging through me. Emma whispered, "It's okay, we can handle this." But her voice lacked conviction, and I could sense the doubt creeping into her mind. Victor moved slightly behind me, his presence both reassuring and terrifying. "Do not panic. Control the narrative. Liana exists now, and she must remain coherent." The shadow stepped forward, revealing only a portion of their face before pausing. My heart skipped a beat. Recognition? Stranger? Ally or threat? The uncertainty was a knife twisting in my chest. Every instinct screamed to flee, but I knew that running would expose everything. Liana's reflection in the mirror became the anchor. I adjusted the dress, straightened my posture, and forced a soft, steady smile. The delicate persona I had cultivated in the lab was now my only shield. The visitor tilted their head slightly, and a faint smile played on their lips, a knowing, almost mischievous expression. "So, this is Liana," they said, voice calm, yet layered with intrigue. A cold wave of suspense washed over me. How much did they know? Were they a friend? An enemy? Someone who could unravel my secret with a single word? Liana's body stiffened as I realized the stakes were higher than ever. Emma stepped closer, squeezing my hand. "Do you know them?" she asked, eyes flicking nervously between the visitor and me. I shook my head slowly, though inside, my thoughts raced. Every fiber of Liana screamed caution. The experiment had brought me this far, but the outside world, the real world, was unpredictable, dangerous. One wrong move, and the fragile balance of identity, secrecy, and trust could collapse entirely. The visitor took another step, closer now, their eyes locking on mine. A subtle smile hinted at recognition, understanding, or perhaps something else entirely. My pulse pounded. Liana's body reacted instinctively, poised yet vulnerable, delicate yet defiant. Victor's voice was low, almost a whisper now. "Remember, Liana, control yourself. Do not reveal more than necessary. Every gesture, every word, every glance matters." I nodded imperceptibly, though my thoughts were a storm of fear and exhilaration. Liana's fingers curled slightly, brushing against the fabric of the dress, grounding herself in the delicate persona that had taken shape over hours of transformation. The visitor paused, studying me with an intensity that felt like it could pierce through the carefully constructed barrier between Liam and Liana. And then a faint chuckle, soft and deliberate, filled the room. "Interesting," the voice said. "Very interesting indeed." My stomach nodded. What did they mean? Had they discovered the truth? Or was this some cruel game? Liana's reflection stared back at me, wide-eyed and fragile, every emotion mirrored perfectly in the glass. I realized that the next few moments would determine everything, my secret, my identity, and the delicate trust between Emma and me. The visitor took one final step forward, and the door clicked softly behind them. The sound echoed in the room, a subtle, ominous punctuation. I could feel the tension coiling tighter and tighter inside me. Liana was poised on the edge of revelation, exposure, and uncertainty. Emma looked at me, eyes filled with questions, fear, and a hint of wonder. What is happening? I opened my mouth, ready to answer, but the words stuck in my throat. The suspense was unbearable. Every second stretched like an eternity, every heartbeat a countdown. Liana trembled slightly, yet maintained composure. The delicate persona ready to face the unknown, but aware that one wrong move could shatter everything. And then, the visitor reached out slowly, a gloved hand hovering near the mirror, almost as if testing the fragile boundary between Liam and Liana. The room went silent. The moment hung suspended, every breath frozen. Liana's reflection stared back, poised and beautiful, yet trembling with vulnerability. And in that silence, one truth became undeniable. The experiment had succeeded in creating Liana, but whether she could survive the consequences of this revelation remained unknown. The screen of the story fades to black.